guy will get burned. So we try to restrict it to 60 degrees. Even with a wind velocity of 1 meter per second, with a thickness of 150, your hand will not get burned because it is 60 degrees. But if you see by the losses thing, you are actually losing energy. So it is your decision by what actual criteria you are going to do the design of the thickness. So this is just to give an idea of that system. Next. Some of the other aspects for selection of, now we come to the insulation material. We have seen insulation design, how we do it. It is done by computerized program available. Now how we do the selection, before we go to the material selection. Now what are the general, some of the broad criteria by following this? Now one of the important criteria is that it should be suitable for the particular operating conditions. Now there are various insulation materials which is governed by the mass. Because mass is also related, the density related to the heat transfer, the thickness is also. If you go by various IS standards or American British standards, they restrict the density in terms of the temperature of application. So the insulation which you are selecting should be suitable for the particular temperature. Second is that, the point is that it should be in the proper form. Insulation is available in loose form, pipe form, blanket form, mattress form, or you go to the ceramic fabric forms in the board form or paper form. So whatever form is actually required, suppose you are going for a pipeline, go for pipe section, most convenient. If it is a large dia, go for a blanket insulation. Even a more larger dia, you may take a blanket with a wire netting on one side. Because when a labor is working at a higher length, higher height, he should be able to hold the material and at the same time it should not fall down. So that is why we have got reinforced wire netting. Similarly, insulation is also sometimes required to have the proper thickness. Why we say insulation thickness single layer should not be more than 75? Because when a labor is holding the insulation, at most conveniently he can hold 3 inches. He cannot hold up 4 inches. If he does it, he will either damage the insulation or he will not be able to apply it properly. So there is an international system to follow single maximum layer of 75 mm. Beyond that, it should be multiple layers. Then other forms comes up how you apply and all those things. Next. Further important factors is that water repellent. Nowadays, the climate is not defined. In any earlier, we used to have known factors like the monsoon is going to come at this particular time. Then we have a winter session. In winter session, some places knows to have this rainfall. So we used to have a good control about our meteorology department, have a good control of the environment. But we nowadays don't know when the rain is going to come, how severe it is. Something called water repellent insulation will be important because we don't have much control upon the labor of some parts of the country. If you are applying the insulation, suddenly the lunch break comes up. He will leave the insulation, go for the lunch. By the time he comes up, there is a shower. What happens? The insulation gets wet. So do you throw away? You lose money. Or even if it has got wet, then if you go on percolate to the pipe surface, pipe may start corrosion. So all those are uncontrollable factors. If you try to solve them, you go to the contractual problem. Project is delayed. So we have got something called water repellent insulation, which even after absorption, even if you dip it for 48 hours, absorption will be very, very negligible as per PS test. Then we have got corrosion resistance also. The insulation many a times, if you apply it over stainless steel surfaces, corrosion will start. Number 2, even if you have insulation material, which, because insulation many of the time during manufacturing it gets chloride into it. So that chloride, if it comes in contact with the SS surface, corrosion starts. Even if you avoid putting chloride during the application by the labor, because the sweat which is coming in, corrosion will come. So we have got something called corrosion resistant inhibited insulation. There is one more corrosion factor, that is corrosion under insulation onto the pipe surface. So we have got laminated insulation. So various forms has to be selected. Next is fireproof non-combustible. There are many places which calls for absolutely non-combustible insulation. There are insulation material which is available which can resist fire. You can see the slide. For 60 minutes, we call it A60 classification, which is actually used in ONGC, offshore platforms, Indian Navy ships, because if there is a fire on a ship, you have to just jump on the ship. So we have got the cabins where the soldiers actually stay totally insulated, which is absolutely non-combustible. Then the durability, and finally we have got something called green insulation products nowadays. It is already introduced in the building industry, cold storage, after some time it will be in the main industry. What is green? Greenness insulation is that basically the product itself during its own manufacture will consume less amount of energy, less embodied energy. Second, it should be locally available. That is, not much fuel is spent while transporting the insulation. So You have to think that what is available in the local area in the country should be used. So these are all happenings. Now when you come to the typical design factors in the insulation, now these are the typical design environment conditions which is taken up. That is, we take ambient around 40 degree, we take the surface temperature up to 60 degree as I said, wind velocity, if you still want to have some impact, then you can put as 0.25 meter for inside, 0.5 for outside, 0 for energy. Why inside less? Because if it is suppose a power plant turbine hall, entire thing is covered. So if the heat is coming up from the turbine or from the pipes, and if you take this wind impact, your heat will be entered inside. You are sitting in this room, you are feeling the heat. Aren't you feeling the heat? Why? We are feeling the heat because this is not insulated. Whatever heat is accumulated by way of a inhaling is kept inside, it is not going out. So in this case, if you follow a situation of this wind impact of this, you will find that the heat which has been generated is being circulated inside. The same thing if you take a power plant, DG hall, heat which has come out, that building takes into consideration a wind velocity, that is vessel thickness, heat will get accumulated. So these are the practical impact. Next. Coming to the emissivity which I was mentioning, if you see so many materials which is used for cladding, aluminium sheet, GI sheet, color-coated GI sheet which nowadays in Chhattisgarh is manufactured by Jindals. Then you have got plaster finished glass color. This is the emissivity, 0.2, it goes up to 0.85. Now this, if you take the impact, higher the emissivity is going, that is 0.8 value when it comes, so thickness gets reduced. So advantage is that because heat is directly related to the surface area, kilocalories per meter square per hour area. So as long as the surface area increases, heat losses increases. So if you are able to select this cladding in a proper way, that is why we are shifting nowadays from aluminium to color-coated GI sheet. Turbines, till now turbines used to be insulated with a normal insulation with some sort of plaster. But now we have gone one step ahead from plaster to glass cloth. Turbines earlier used to have a thickness of something around 300 mm, 350 mm. But if you go with this glass cloth impregnated insulation material, the thickness can be brought down to 200, 250. So the area reduces because we are taking impact of these aspects. Second is that we take the fluid design temperature, the operating condition, thickness calculation already explained by STMC 680. Next, when you come to the type of insulation, this is just an example, just one example to show you, specially followed in the power industry mostly. There are various types of insulation graded as per the operating conditions and as per the density. We have type 1, which is normally up to beyond 400 degrees centigrade, type 2 below 400 degrees centigrade,